So, obviously, Deshaun Watson wants out of Houston. And personally, I don't blame Deshaun Watson for wanting out of Houston because he's been poorly supported in that organization, between the head coaches, the front office, the lack of an offensive line, the lack of a run game, the defense falling apart this year. It's just a mess in Houston. I don't think Deshaun Watson is flat out happy. And ultimately, I think that he's right now one of the top, 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. I would hate to see his career get wasted away. People say, well, Deshaun Watson should sit and stay with one organization like Philip Rivers did, like Matthew Stafford did. And it's nice for those players to sit there and be loyal to a franchise. But at the same time, I think to myself, what if Philip Rivers was a little bit more bullish and said, I want to go somewhere else, I think that I like the fact that Deshaun Watson, is kind of pushing back on his organization and holding them accountable. Now, one team that Deshaun Watson has been linked to is the New York Jets. So, Caleb, I want to ask you this question. The Jets obviously need a franchise quarterback for the future. We think Sam Darnold has something, but maybe with another team. We kind of think that it's time to move on from him. Obviously, guys like Fields, Lance, Wilson, they are guys you could draft. But you look at Deshaun Watson, he's a proven commodity in the NFL. It is one of the rarest things to get a guy that's 25 years old, that's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL in his prime, and he's on the market, and you guys have a ton of draft capital, and I think you guys can go get him. So, do you want the Jets to trade for Deshaun Watson? What are the pros and cons of that?
All I hear is pros. If we get a top 5 quarterback, arguably top 3 quarterback, depending on where you rank quarterbacks on the team, I take that.
So you want them to do it?
Absolutely. Because here's the thing: there's a lot of factors that go into it. We have the number 2 pick, number 23 pick. We have 2 first-round picks next year. We have 2 third-round picks this year. If we trade Sam Darnold, what I'm hearing and reading a lot is at least a second-round pick. So this year we could possibly have 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, and 2 2s next year. We have more than enough to trade for Deshaun Watson and still be able to build around him. And if Deshaun Watson comes to New York, Deshaun Watson, Robert Saleh, Mike LaFleur, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And really, I don't care when you have a franchise quarterback, unless you're a terrible organization like the Texans have proven to be, you're going to find ways to build around them. And the Jets can't do that. You have guys like Allen Robinson liking stuff on Twitter about the Jets going and trying to, or how they should go get Deshaun Watson. Allen Robinson's going to be a free agent this year. So it kind of makes you wonder, if Deshaun Watson goes to the Jets, might Allen Robinson join him too? And then you have Allen Robinson, you have Denzel Mims, Jamison Crowder in the slot, he's a good slot receiver. You're building a solid offense right there. And you need a good offense to win games. And I'm seeing stuff on Jets Twitter and social media, he won 4 games last year. He won 4 games last year because the team is bad.
There is not a single starting quarterback that could have made the playoffs with the 2020 Houston Texans roster and coaching staff. I've said that in the past. Not a single starting quarterback. Not Mahomes, not Aaron Rodgers, not Tom Brady. No one.
He led the league in passing yards and only won 4 games. Yeah, he almost had 5,000 passing yards. So I wouldn't. The only cons would be that we'd lose draft picks. So what? So what if we lose some draft picks? We have enough to be able to recoup and still be able to build. It's not like we're mortgaging the entire future for the guy. You're essentially trading this year's first-round pick and Jamal Adams for Deshaun Watson. Yes. In a heartbeat, yes. Now, will he want to come to New York? That's another question, too. They have owners' instability, and that's kind of his issue in Houston right now, is he doesn't like the owner. Understandably so. So maybe he doesn't want to come to New York because he's heard of instability with their ownership. Even though the Jets do look like they're trending in the right direction to becoming a functional franchise again, there's still a lot of work to be done. And because Watson has a no-trade clause, he'd have to okay any trade. So if the Texans get trade from the Jets or the Dolphins, and Texans go to Deshaun Watson and say, these two teams have offered trades for you that we're willing to accept, Watson would have to sign off on going to one of those and which team he'd be willing to waive his no trade clause for. So that's the biggest issue here is, would he really want to come to New York? And he was in New York recently. He was in the area of the stadium. He was posting that on his Instagram story. So that's kind of when the whole Jets stuff started, was he was in the area and just linking that. I would love to see him in green and white. If he gets traded, I will buy a jersey that day. And I need more jerseys of players that are actually on the team, seeing as I have none. But I would love to see Deshaun Watson in New York. I ultimately think he gets traded to the NFC. I think the Texans are going to do whatever they can to get him out of the NFC. Like San Francisco, Washington, they'd be a contender with Watson right there. Or Carolina is another team too that I think he could do well in Carolina. Miami, I do not want to see him in Miami because
understandably so, because they're in your division.
We just got out of 2 decades of Tom Brady. We are currently in the next decade with Josh Allen. Could we not have Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, please? And it'd rewrite the wrong of Mike McCagnon back in 2017 he was drafted. We chose Jamal Adams over Deshaun Watson. Wouldn't it be something else if we get Deshaun Watson because of our trade with Jamal Adams? Because if it's not for that trade, we are not in this position right now. And we have enough cap room to take on his contract and still add free agents. So if he wants to come to New York, write a blank check and sign and have the Jets sign it at that point.
Yeah, I think Deshaun Watson is the 4th best quarterback in the NFL. I have him behind Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson, just because those 3 guys have been to and have won Super Bowls. Look, I do like Josh Allen a lot, but Josh Allen's had one great season, and Deshaun Watson actually beat him in the playoffs last year. You look at Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's amazing. I really do like Lamar Jackson, but I think that Deshaun Watson can make more out of less. He's a little bit more accurate. I think that I'll take him in the playoffs over a guy like Lamar Jackson. As good as Tom Brady is at 43 years old, Tom Brady needs a really good offensive line. There's a reason why he went to Tampa Bay, because he needed good players around him. So I love Tom Brady, but can't take him over Deshaun Watson if I'm starting a team today. So I think Deshaun Watson is a borderline elite quarterback. I think that he's right there. He needs a little more around him to win, obviously, because he only won 4 games this past year. But, I mean, hey, that's not a huge knock on the guy. The guy is an amazing player. He's really accurate, makes really good plays down the field, can make plays off schedule. He's a really phenomenal human being as well, So I think that Deshaun Watson definitely needs to try to get out of Houston and whatnot. I would love to see him with the 49ers. Actually, I wouldn't like to see it, just because I'm a Packers fan. But if I'm a guy that's rooting for Deshaun Watson, him in San Francisco with Nick Bosa in that defense and, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Kyle Shanahan calling the plays, that'd be great. And I do think that Miami should be next up on his list, just because they have a really good defense. They have some decent weapons, and they have a lot of draft picks as well to where they can build around him. So I think that Miami and San Francisco are the 2 places he should want to go to. But I do think the Jets make the most sense, because as far as what teams should be trying to pursue him the most, because they have the draft capital and they need a franchise quarterback. So, and look, the Texans are going to want a lot back for Deshaun Watson, so you could potentially maybe throw Sam Darnold in that, trade, and the number 2 overall pick, and a couple other players, and we'll see what the Houston Texans are cooking with. I don't think their franchise is this franchise you should believe in, but yeah, I think Deshaun Watson, him to the Jets makes some sense, at least from the Jets' perspective. We'll see if Deshaun Watson actually wants to go there, but yeah, only time will tell.
Having that number 2 overall pick for the Texans would be huge, because then they can turn it around into someone that they can say, like, this is our next future. They can turn that into a Justin Fields or a Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, whoever they decide should be Deshaun Watson's successor. And if you trade with like the Washington football team, They're drafting
18.
They're 19.
They're 19th pick. 19th pick.
How are you supposed to sell a fan base on that? We just got rid of our franchise quarterback. We have no idea who our quarterback is going to be next year, but come buy some tickets. So having that number 2 overall pick is going to be huge in a negotiation with the Texans, and that's why Miami also makes sense, because they have, the Texans' first-round pick from this year. They have the number 3 overall pick. So you're hoping that if you trade to either New York or Miami, you're getting a top 3 quarterback in this class, and also some additional draft picks and whatever else you get in a Watson trade. So I think those 2 teams make the most sense for the Texans, but I agree with you on the whole Watson thing, where if I'm Watson, I want to go to Miami or San Francisco.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We'll see where Deshaun Watson goes. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.